I bet you already know that we encounter integers in all kinds of real-world situations, like gaining and losing points in video games, increasing and decreasing temperatures, and elevations above and below sea level, just to name a few. Now, you might have guessed that situations like these often require us to add or subtract integers, so let's start with a quick review of the rules for adding and subtracting integers before we check out some real-world problems. When we add integers, it's important to pay attention to the signs of the numbers. If the signs are the same, we add the absolute values of the numbers and keep the sign. Wait a minute, what is absolute value? Absolute value is a number's distance from 0 on the number line. For example, the absolute value of both 2 and -2 is 2, because they are both 2 units from 0 on the number line. The vertical lines around 2 and -2 are the symbols we use to represent absolute value. Alright, back to our rule for adding integers with the same signs. Let's look at a couple of examples to see this rule in action. In both of these problems, the signs are the same. Positive in the first problem and negative in the second problem. So, to find the sums for these problems, we first need to add the absolute values of the numbers. Of course, you already know that 2 plus 3 equals +5 since the numbers we're adding are positive. For the problem -2 plus -3, we add the absolute values of the numbers, 2 plus 3, to get 5. Then, since both signs are negative, the answer is -5. Sometimes when we add integers, the signs are different, like these problems. If the signs are different, we subtract the absolute values of the numbers and keep the sign of the number with the greater absolute value. That means in the first problem, we need to subtract 2 from 3 to get 1. Then, since +3 has the greater absolute value, the answer is +1. On the other hand, the answer to the second problem is -1 because -3 has the greater absolute value. We can't forget about subtracting integers. To subtract integers, we can rewrite a subtraction problem as an addition problem since subtracting a number is the same as adding its opposite. For instance, the problem 2 minus 3 can be rewritten as 2 plus the opposite of 3, which is -3. Now that we have an addition problem with different signs, we already know what to do. Subtract and keep the sign of the number with the greater absolute value. So, since 2 plus -3 is -1, the answer to the original problem, 2 minus 3, is -1. Alright, so now that we remember how to add and subtract integers, let's check out some real-world situations like those you heard about at the beginning of the video, starting with this one. Hannah was playing her new video game, Diamond Dash. She scored 12 points in Level 1 for collecting all the blue diamonds. In Level 2, she accidentally destroyed all the purple diamonds and scored -18 points. How many total points does Hannah have after completing the first 2 levels? To solve a word problem, it's important to read the problem carefully to make sure we understand the situation and know what question we need to answer. For this problem, the question we need to answer is how many total points does Hannah have after completing the first 2 levels? To figure that out, we'll need to use Hannah's scores from each round, 12 points and -18 points, and find clue words to help us decide whether we should add or subtract them. In this problem, I see the word total, which tells us we need to add 12 and -18. The signs in this expression are different, so we have to subtract 12 from 18 to get 6. Then, since the greater absolute value is negative, the answer is -6. So, Hannah has -6 points after completing the first 2 levels, which seems reasonable since Hannah scored more negative points than positive points. Let's try this problem next. When Jamal went to bed, the temperature in Sioux Falls, South Dakota was -15 degrees Fahrenheit. By 8 o'clock the next morning, the temperature had decreased 13 degrees. What was the temperature at 8 a.m.? We already read the problem, and now we need to answer the question, what was the temperature at 8 a.m.? To figure that out, we need to use the temperature when Jamal went to bed, -15 degrees, and the amount the temperature decreased by, 13 degrees. Just like the last problem, we also need to locate any clue words that tell us which operation to use. Do you see any words that indicate either addition or subtraction? I bet you found the word decreased, which means we have to subtract 13 degrees from -15 degrees. Negative 15 minus 13 is a subtraction problem, so we'll need to rewrite it as the addition problem, negative 15 plus negative 13. When adding integers with the same signs, we add the absolute values of the numbers and keep the sign. 15 plus 13 is 28, and since both numbers are negative, the answer is negative 28. So the temperature at 8 a.m. was negative 28 degrees Fahrenheit. That makes sense because the temperature decreased and negative 28 is colder than negative 15. We'll tackle one more problem together before you go. Prisha went on a Costa Rican vacation to enjoy the great outdoors. While she was there, she hiked up a volcano, reaching an elevation of 920 feet above sea level. She also went scuba diving where she dove to 115 feet below sea level. What is the difference between the two elevations Prisha experienced? For this problem, the question we need to answer is what is the difference between the two elevations Prisha experienced? If we want to figure that out, we'll need to use the elevation Prisha reached on the volcano, 920 feet above sea level, and the elevation she dove to while scuba diving, 115 feet below sea level. Did you notice the two key phrases that go with these numbers? If we define sea level as 0 feet, above sea level tells us the 920 is positive, and below sea level tells us the 115 is negative. So to solve this problem, we'll use the numbers 920 and negative 115. Of course, we also have to decide which operation to use by finding clue words. I see the word difference, which tells us to subtract, since a difference is the answer to a subtraction problem. So the problem we're solving is 920 minus negative 115, which we need to rewrite as the addition problem, 920 plus 115. 920 plus 115 equals 1,035. The difference between the two elevations Prisha experienced is 1,035 feet. That might be larger than you were expecting since one of the elevations was negative. But remember, we found the difference between the two elevations, which means the distance between 920 feet above sea level and 115 feet below sea level is 1,035 feet. Awesome work! I know you'll be able to handle all kinds of word problems involving adding and subtracting integers now.